Welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the Minneapolis Planning Commission for Monday, March 10th, 2025. My name is Chris Meyer. I'm chair of the Planning Commission. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Commissioner Baxley.
Here.
Campbell.
Here.
Chowdhury is absent. Conley is absent. Gordon.
Here.
Jones. Here. Meyer.
Here.
Shefty is absent. Thompson is absent. Wagner.
Here.
We have 6 members present.
Let the record show we have a quorum. First up, we'll take the minutes of February 24th, 2025. Would someone like to move those minutes?
I'll move those.
Is there a second? All right. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are adopted. Next, we will organize the agenda. So first, we'll have an item without a hearing, item number 4. And then staff are recommending that we discuss items 5 and 8, and that 6 and 7 be on consent. So I'm going to read the 2 items for 6 and 7. If you were here to speak against the staff recommendation, please let us know when I read those off. So the first one is item number 6, 3333 East 41st Street. Was anyone here to speak against the staff recommendation on item number 6? Not seeing any, so we'll keep that on consent. And then item number 7, 3605 44th Street East and 4440 Snelling Avenue. Was anyone here to speak against the staff recommendation on item number 7? All right, not seeing any for that one either. So to review, there will be no hearing on item 4. We'll do that first. We'll discuss 5, have 6 and 7 on consent, and discuss 8. Would anyone like to move that agenda? Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That agenda is adopted. All right, so first we'll do item number 4, 1400, 1406, 1412, and 1418 8th Avenue North. Is there any discussion, questions, or requests for presentation on item number 4? Would someone like to move the motion on that one?
I'll move for adoption of staff recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Item number 4 is adopted. Next, we'll open the public hearing for our consent items. So if you were here to speak about 6 or 7 and just wanted to say anything about it, you're welcome to do that now. Was anyone here interested in speaking to items 6 or 7? Sure. So number 6 is 3333 East 41st Street. And number 7 is 3605 44th Street East and 4440 Snelling Avenue. Is anyone here to speak on either of those? All right. So, and I believe we have copies of the agendas back there if you want to look to make sure that whatever you came to speak for, you'll have a chance to do that. All right. So not seeing anybody, I will close the public hearing on the consent agenda. Commissioners, are there any comments or discussion about our consent agenda? All right. Would someone like to move items 6 and 7?
So moved.
Approval of those. Okay. All right. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions. Items 6 and 7 are adopted, so if you came here for those 2, good luck with your projects. So now we'll move to our first discussion item, item number 5, 715 South 9th Street, etc. This is the Hennepin Avenue, or the Hennepin County parking garage.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Hillary DeVark, a principal planner in the Land Use Design and Preservation section of the Planning Division of CPED. I am here today to speak about the Hennepin Healthcare South Replacement Ramp. The development site is located at, excuse me, oops. Sorry. The development site is located at 715 South 9th, 908 to 920 Centennial Place, and 900 Chicago Avenue. All of the properties are currently used for surface parking. Centennial Place, which is a public street, separates the properties from one another, and the applicant is proposing to vacate this right-of-way. A public alley runs adjacent to the west side of the development site, but the applicant is not proposing to use that for access into or out of the parking ramp. The applicant is proposing to construct a new 6-story, 1,046-space parking garage with a 10,220 square feet of ground-level commercial on the site. This garage would serve the Hennepin Healthcare Hospital campus and replace the existing 1,375-space parking garage located across the street from the site. The existing parking garage would be demolished once this new parking garage is constructed. And where the existing parking garage is located, the hospital intends to build a hospital bed tower there in the future. This is a site plan showing the proposed development. The principal vehicular access to the site is along South 9th Street, so I'm just going to orient everyone in the room. This is South 9th Street. This is the access point to the parking garage in the same location as where Centennial Place is today. There will be 3 access points into the garage for pedestrians. One here at the corner of 9th and Chicago, one over here in the northeast corner of the site along 9th Street, and then one down here, stair-only access in the southeast corner along Chicago Avenue. There will be a secure bike parking area for employees in the building located here near the elevator and stair access that gets into the Skyway system. And then the applicant is proposing that 10,220 square feet of commercial space along Chicago. And I'm just pointing that out here in this, along there. And I guess just to show you the commercial in a little bit better, there it is highlighted in purple. As I had mentioned, the applicant is proposing to connect the parking garage to the Hennepin Healthcare Clinic and Specialty Center located across South 9th Street from the site via a skyway. And here is just a section showing what that skyway design would be. The skyway does meet our standards. However, we were not able to confirm the footing on the glass for bird safety, and so we do have a condition and site plan review pertaining to that. There are several applications before you this afternoon for this project, one of which is being returned. I erroneously took in a variance for electrical vehicle charging stations, and that is not needed, so that one is being returned. But the other applications are needed and to be acted on today. The first is a rezoning. The applicants are proposing to rezone the properties that are located on the west side of Centennial from the DT1 to the DT2. Staff finds that rezoning the site to the DT2 would be consistent with the goals and the policies of the comprehensive plan. This will allow the applicant to align the zoning across the entire development site. This rezoning is intended to accommodate expansion of the hospital campus, which does serve as a public, or which serves a public interest. The west half of the site is guided for public office and institutional in Minneapolis 2040, and the east half is guided for destination mixed use in Minneapolis 2040. The west half is adjacent to Chicago Avenue. The proposed rezoning is appropriate given the surrounding context, and with Chicago Avenue being a designated goods and services corridor, rezoning the whole site to D22 would be in conformance with the policy. The project does need a conditional use permit. The establishment of a principal parking garage will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, comfort, or general welfare. This parking garage is a catalyst for a future redevelopment of the hospital campus and is the first step that needs to be taken in order for that hospital vision to come to reality. The proposed parking garage has been situated on this site so as not to impede on the adjacent residential structures. There are residential structures immediately to the north and to the south of this. The applicant has designed the garage with increased setbacks from all of those surrounding residential properties and has designed the exterior of the parking garage to be able to reduce impacts with the spacing of the louvers that are on the exterior. Where those buildings are located, those louvers will get closer to screen the lights, and where there aren't, they can be further apart. So we are recommending approval of the conditional use permit. The next application that they need is a variance of the minimum FAR from the required 2.0, which is the minimum in the zoning district, to 2.27. Floor area devoted to parking and loading does not count towards the minimum. However, it does count towards the maximum. I went through the math in the report for you. The parking garage the FAR of the building with just the commercial is 0.27. If you took the whole structure as a whole, the FAR of the structures is 4.0. Challenges exist in complying with the ordinance because of circumstances unique to the property. As I've mentioned, the proposed replacement garage is intended to facilitate future growth of the greater Hennepin Healthcare Hospital campus. In order to facilitate the overall campus growth, the construction of the parking garage is the first step that needs to be taken. The overall FAR of the Hennepin Healthcare campus as a whole would greatly exceed the minimum FAR of the Transit 20 built form overlay district, and replacing one parking garage with another of a similar size and scale would have a neutral impact on the overall amount of development on the campus. The proposed parking garage is replacing a similarly sized parking garage on the adjacent site and will provide ground floor commercial space to activate it in a manner that is in keeping with the intent of the built form overlay. We are recommending approval of the variance. For site plan review, there are 5 items that need alternative compliance. The first is the placement of the parking garage. The building has been pulled back from that front lot line along Chicago. The heavy dark line is the property line, and the building is between 15 and 20 feet back from that property line. The space between the building and that front property line is going to be used for their on-site stormwater system. We are recommending that you grant alternative compliance for building placement. The next 2 items that need alternative compliance are windows. They do not meet the minimum window requirement on the upper levels of the parking garage facing Chicago. And then that there is no active liner along Chicago Avenue on those upper floors. We are recommending that you grant alternative compliance. The minimum window requirement is being met on the ground floor. In fact, they exceed the minimum window requirement. They have 100% windows on the ground floor. And we are recommending alternative compliance, including windows or commercial spaces on those upper floors would be impractical for the proposed use of this building is meant to be a parking garage. It is not intended to be anything else. The top level of the parking garage is not enclosed or screened from view. This is a floor plan that shows the 6th level. This area that's highlighted in the darker blue in the middle is where the solar array system will be, effectively screening the top of the garage. And so we are recommending that you grant alternative compliance. And the last item then is that the overall size of the garage exceeds the overall size of the garage. And for the reasons that I've stated before, we are recommending that you grant alternative compliance. There are 2 other applications that are needed for this project. One is a preliminary plat, which meets all of the design standards and the comprehensive plan and the zoning code, and we are recommending approval of that. And the other application is the vacation of Centennial Place from 9th Street to 10th Street. We have been working with Public Works. Public Works has submitted a letter of support or of recommendation to approve the vacation with easements for water, sewer, and our Transportation and Parking Services Division for some equipment that's out in the right-of-way. And so we are recommending approval of the vacation. That and the rezoning need to go through full city council process after the Planning Commission acts. This concludes my presentation. I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Hillary. I have one. So you mentioned the bird-safe glass. Is that under site plan review? The condition is?
Yes, I
So which
added the
item would that fit
condition.
under?
Excuse me?
Which number would that fit under?
It is number 4 under site plan review, so E4, the Skyway shall be designed to conform the standards of Chapter 550 Development Standards, Article 15 Skyways of the zoning code.
Got it. All right.
All of the other standards that are required, and this was laid out in the first few pages of the staff report where I talked about the Skyway requirements of the code and how they do or don't. The only thing that we could not confirm was footing, but I am sure that it will be met and will need to be met with this condition of approval.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions before we open it up to the public hearing? All right, not seeing any, so I'll open the public hearing, and we can hear from the applicant first. Is the applicant here to present?
Yes.
Great. If you can introduce yourself.
Yes. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yvonne Forsyth with Hennepin County Facility Services. We are really pleased to be here today, and we are with our partner, Hennepin Healthcare. We're looking forward to moving this pivotal and critical project forward. It really is the first project, as Hillary mentioned, of an overall redevelopment strategy for the hospital. The south parking ramp is the first project of a multi-phase and multi-billion-dollar reinvestment that the county plans to make in that community and in the hospital. This summer, building on a long-term relationship the hospital has with the Elliott Park neighborhood, we've presented the project. We are really grateful for their support. They're excited about the future vision and understand that the parking ramp is, again, that first step to take in the overall redevelopment. So we, again, are pleased to be here. We stand for any questions, and that's our opening remarks. So thank you.
I do have a question.
Yes, please.
So I appreciated the extensive study that you had for travel demand management that you commissioned from October. I'm wondering if you can summarize what you took away from that study.
I think I will call.
Like what strategies you're using generally to reduce vehicle miles traveled.
Part of with the travel demand, any current updates on things that have happened since? Is that your question?
Well, I mean, the study makes recommendations, but I'm not sure what you're taking away from it, like what you're.
Yes, part of it was the bike parking in the ramp. I know the hospital is working on strategic engagement with their employees on, there has been concern that this parking ramp is actually smaller than the ramp that's coming down, and how is that going to be managed? And again, so I think the hospital will lean heavy on that strategic plan while the parking ramp is being built to make that happen. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
And, we had talked about this in the committee of the whole as well. Are you doing anything additional to incentivize public transit or anything like that?
Whatever was listed in the plan.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not as familiar with the TDM.
Okay.
Do you want to hear from the hospital, or?
If you think they have anything to add, I don't know.
Do you have, sorry, Margaret.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Margot Geffen. I'm the Facilities Director for Hennepin Healthcare. And right now, we currently do half off of Metro Transit passes. As Yvonne said, we're doing extensive engagement with our residents. So there are 9 bus routes that go past our hospital, and so we're working to engage our staff to use those modes of transportation.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Conley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just say one of the things that I appreciated was reading about the engagement with the neighborhood organization. A lot of times projects come before us and there's a butting of heads between what residents heard versus what the project is about from the developers. And so I really appreciate that you took the extra effort to make sure that the surrounding neighborhood was involved and the setbacks and, all the details of the plan. So thank you for that. The question I was going to ask was related to bus passes as well. There are a lot of transit routes that all kind of intersect and converge where the hospital is. And so glad to hear that there's some work being done there. Even more incentivizing would be great to get more workers to be able to take modes of transit there. And just one question I had about the bike parking. It looks like there's a minimum of 3 spaces, but that could go up to...
So there will be a bike inside the garage, like a secured site that will have more than 3. But I think what you're referring to is Hillary had asked that as part of the, that there be some external parking, bike parking. And so that's where we are being asked to add 3 bike parking spots on the outside. And that certainly is something, we have we've left a lot of space in that front area, and so we were happy to want to, we want to comply with that request.
Commissioner Baxley.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Yvonne. This may be a bit of an esoteric question, but since this is the first project coming out of this rethinking, it starts to set the tone architecturally, facade study. So I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you guys landed here with this and what its inspiration was and why it's important for the first step.
We have our design team here too, if we get in too many of the details, but I think what we really wanted it to blend in with the neighborhood, and so we're really looking at terracotta with the red stone, the brown stone buildings that are existing, try to make it blend in as well as possible. Now, when we get to the design of the new inpatient bed tower, we may want to present something that is more, it's different. It's really like, you're coming to a new inpatient bed tower, and maybe it will be a different type of thinking at that time, but we're not there yet. But for this, it's a parking ramp. We wanted it to be as beautiful, as fitting within the neighborhood fabric as best as possible.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you for your testimony.
Okay, thank you.
If you were here to testify on this, can you raise your hand so I have an idea of how many there are? Just 3? Okay, great. So you can come up, introduce yourself, tell us your name and address for the record if you're comfortable.
Chair Meyer, if I may interrupt, once you've spoken, if you haven't signed in on the sign-up sheet, please do so as well. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Hello, my name is Stephen Schroer. I am a resident of 900 Centennial Place, specifically apartment 16. And I am here to speak to you today. And I would just like to mention, since it was mentioned in the previous comment, about community engagement. As a resident, and with speaking with my fellow residents, none of us have been contacted about this, and I only found out about this on Saturday. Given that time frame, I'm rather happy with my results of what I've been able to do, because what I have brought with you here today is a signed letter with 41 signatures, and that includes neighborhood residents, Minneapolis City residents, as well as Metro residents who also work in downtown. That is what I have here to read for you today. We, the signatories of this letter, oppose in whole or in part the rezoning and development of the land surrounding Centennial Place into a parking garage. We believe that such action will be detrimental to the residents neighboring such a structure as well as the city as a whole. We believe that other suitable locations do exist for Hennepin Healthcare Center to expand its parking, to replace the parking on Chicago Avenue. We believe the surface parking lot on Portland Avenue adjacent to the hospital ramp on Park Avenue between South 6th Street and South 7th Street would be a much more appropriate location for hospital parking expansion. This location already shares a block with a hospital parking ramp, limiting the disruption to the neighborhood. This location also appears to be similar in size to the suggested site by the petitioners for the zoning change. This location is also already used for surface parking. We believe that such a structure on the proposed site would drastically change the character of the neighborhood and negatively disrupt the residents thereof. The current ramp on Chicago Avenue routinely has car alarms go off, potentially due to break-ins. Moving the ramp further into the residential neighborhood would exacerbate this nuisance. A non-residential concrete building would also clash with the brownstone character of the neighborhood. While it is our understanding from documents related to the zoning request that the petitioners do not intend to displace the residential housing in the location, including 900 Centennial Place, we, the signatories, do believe this not to be the case in whole or in part. One resident was offered a 12-month lease renewal in August, and before they were able to sign it, that offer was retracted and replaced with a 6-month lease ending in February. Due to the terms of their lease, if they didn't sign the 6-month lease, they would have to switch to month, not being able to leave until January. Hardly any better given the Minnesota climate. This resident was only able to secure an 8-month lease ending in April with the assistance of Homeline legal advice, as well as the office of their state senator, the office of the Senate chair of the Housing Committee, and the Attorney General's office. This resident is now having to move in with family. Given the timing and the petitioners being under contract to purchase the building, we can only assume these events are connected. So it would appear that the proposal is already displacing residents and contributing to the housing crisis. We believe that the land surrounding Centennial Place should instead be dedicated to further mixed residential and commercial use, whether in whole or in part. Minnesota is in a housing crisis. We are short over 100,000 housing units. The land surrounding Centennial Place is a prime location for further housing development. The site is located in one of the few downtown residential neighborhoods to mostly survive urban renewal. The mid-20th century destruction of Minneapolis' downtown, where walkable housing occupied by BIPOC, queer, and low-income individuals was demolished to be replaced by ecologically and economically hostile car infrastructure. Downtown has only recently overtaken such infrastructure with new residential development. This site in question is located within walking distance of transit, Elliott Park, other residential buildings, multiple spiritual buildings, as well as the many services available downtown. This makes the site a great location for further mixed residential commercial development. We do plead with the city and the developers that if they do ignore our request to move the intended ramp to a different location, that the current plan development is modified to include increased residential development. We appreciate the ground floor commercial development that has been added to this proposal. We would also request that the city go further. We request that if a parking ramp is to be built on this site, that it is to be surrounded by an apartment building. We point to the city-owned Mill Quarter municipal parking ramp on South 2nd Street as an example of what we would like this development to reflect if it is to go forward. We believe both our recommendations to be reasonable and in the best interest of the neighborhood and the city as a whole. We also believe that the current surface parking lots on the site are also a poor use of the land. We thus petition the city of Minneapolis to deny the zoning request and zoning variance, and that the developers consider the alternatives we have recommended.
Thank you. Staff, do we have a copy of this letter already? If not,
I can just.
if you can give it to them, we can get it submitted into the record. All right, next testifier. Tell us your name and address if you're comfortable, and you can proceed.
Grant Carlson, 620 South 9th Street, Elliott Park, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Really just here, basically asking you guys to read some, really 3 letters that were submitted on behalf of the Elliott condominium community prior to this. City staff should have shared both a letter from my LLC, letter from the condo association, and a letter from our property manager. I just ask you to read that and please consider our thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
No.
Thank you.
All right, next testifier?
I'm just here for support.
Okay. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? All right, so not seeing any, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, any discussion or motions? Commissioner Conley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If the applicant could maybe talk in a little bit more detail about how long you've engaged with Elliott Park, surrounding neighbors, and kind of themes that came out of those conversations.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. We started those conversations last summer. we presented the overall strategy, campus vision, and then we talked about specifically the parking ramp. And then the hospital meets bi-monthly with the neighborhood group, and there have been periodic updates about where this project is in the pipeline as far as how soon are we going to be at the Planning Commission. And so those were, we've also had conversations with several neighbors. Obviously, we didn't hit all of the neighbors, and for that, we do have regrets, I guess. As far as the properties, the county will replat the property once we, for the parking ramp, but there's no intended use of pushing people out of the apartment. And so we will take those comments that were made earlier and speak to what's happening with the property managers. We were not aware of that, so.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Baxley?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yvonne, sorry, one more question. I know we talked a little bit about this at Committee of the Whole, but could you explain again, I mean, we've got the potential bed tower in the future, Blue Ramp, nice square site, easy to park, probably get multi-levels underneath that ramp. Why it's important that this ramp happen now as opposed to with other future development as part of the master plan?
So the existing site of the new inpatient bed tower has a parkside building and also the existing parking ramp. And so in order to tear down the existing ramp and parkside building, we need a place for people to park. Now, again, I think the parking ramp, the new ramp is technically like 20% smaller than the existing ramp, but there has to be a place. This is a 24/7 facility. There has to be a place for parking for staff and for patients and family visitors. So that really is why this has to be the first step in a multi-phased approach and really multiple billion-dollar projects that will be moving forward. We're looking at a new inpatient bed tower and potentially a new behavioral health building, and then redeveloping the red and purple buildings in order to kind of bring them up to that same standard, and then look to future development opportunities of the buildings that would be decommissioned once the new tower was opened.
Thank you. And so for this proposal, will it always be that height? Is it designed for future expansion or anything beyond its current footprint?
I didn't, no.
Okay, thank you.
No expansion opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioners, would anyone like to make any motion or suggest where you're at on this?
I would move approval.
Of the staff report? Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right. There's a motion on the floor to approve the staff recommendation. Any discussion on it? I don't love giant parking garages, but it is 20% smaller. I do appreciate the effort that was made in the TDM study. I would still urge, as I always do, to take advantage of the program that the Met Council provides with large employers to provide fully free passes and to provide passes to your patients as well. But I do see this as a net improvement. I'll note for the people who came to speak against this today, this is not the last stop for part of this. As staff mentioned, the rezoning does have to go to the council. So you can reach out to your council members if you have more feedback on that. With that, any other comments before we go to a vote? All right, seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Baxley?
Aye.
Campbell?
Abstain.
Chaudhry is absent. Conley?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Shefty is absent. Thompson is absent. Wagner?
Aye.
Meyer?
Aye.
We have 6 ayes and 1 abstention.
That carries and is adopted. Next, we'll move on to Item number 8, 2815, 2817, and 2821, 44th Street West. Staff is Aaron Hanover.
So, good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. You read the address. We have a proposed 15-unit condo building, 4 stories, along 2815 to 2821 44th Street West, along a goods and services corridor. It's RM1 zoning with Corridor 3 built form designation in Linden Hills. 3 applications in front of you. First, a corner side yard setback variance along 44th Street. And I hope these arrows, the colors help with the presentation. But the proposal to reduce the setback for the building from 10 feet to 9 feet. The light yellow line is the setback at 9 feet. To reduce the setback for balconies that are greater than 50 square feet from 10 feet to 7 feet. And so on the right side floor plan, highlight in red the portion of the balcony that is the variance is requested. 10 feet to 1 foot for the transformer, the green rectangle on the right side in the site plan. And then also this corner side yard setback variance encompasses the proposal to increase the width of a walkway from 6 feet to 10 feet. That being that portion right here that's beyond that light blue line. And retaining walls that don't completely retain natural grade, that being the orange arrows. So for this setback variance request, CPED did see unique circumstances for the site, no public alley. There's a portion of the site that is in the shoreland overlay, that being on the southeast corner. There's a number of locations within the site that have 10% grade difference and a deep 8.5-foot setback or a boulevard along 44th Street. So along this goods and services corridor, the buildings are set back even further from the sidewalk, and something that we want to see new buildings engage with the public realm. It's sometimes better to be closer to the street. Also, for this variance request, I think it's important to note that the proposed building is setback 7 feet further than the neighboring condo building to the east. That is at less than 2 feet from the 44th Street property line. Those proposed balconies will add eyes on the street when there's a large surface parking lot on the other side of 44th Street. As you'll see in the recommendation, CPED is recommending denial of the 10-foot walkway. I kind of highlighted that on these renderings and elevation, and wanting to see the walkway meet the 6-foot requirement that is beyond the setback. However, CPED does recognize that this site is along a goods and services corridor, and you want to see the buildings engage with the street. There are neighboring properties, especially as you get closer into the downtown portion of Linden Hills, that you have walkways just lead out to the public sidewalk that are larger than 10 feet in width, and that we do see how this walkway design is a reasonable use of the property and given the design of the building. Moving to Vincent Avenue, there's the variance request for a ground level patio going from 15-foot setback to 10.5 feet. The ground level patio would, at its closest point to Vincent Avenue, be 10.5 feet from the front yard property line. Ground level patios that are greater than 100 square feet need to comply with the setback requirement. And this proposal is a 233 square foot patio. So I've highlighted on the right side, the floor plan, that portion of the patio that is beyond the setback requirement. That's about 68 square feet. So for this variance request, staff did not see a unique circumstance like along Vincent Avenue. The properties, especially the low-density residential properties to the south, pretty uniform in maintaining a front yard setback about 15 to 16 feet from Vincent Avenue. So even with that, staff does see that the patio design is designed in a reasonable manner and will be keeping the intent of the ordinance and the comprehensive plan. Appreciate the decorative pavers that the applicant is proposing. 73% of the patio is in compliance with the setback requirement. It's just that red portion that is not. We also appreciate that at its closest point, the patio would be 70 feet from the nearest low-density residential structure to the south. So not really seeing that this would have an adverse impact on the residential properties. So to summarize, CPED's recommending approval of the 44th Street setback variance with the exception of that walkway width, denial of this Vincent Avenue setback request, and approval of the site plan review application. There's 2 letters of support in the staff report attachments. Happy to try to answer questions you may have.
Thank you. So, so the reason that you recommend the variance for the one side and not the other is because the other side is goods and corridor?
That's part of the reasoning, Chair, and just wanting those buildings to really engage with the public street. And then for Vincent Avenue, saw more of a uniform setback with those homes to the south, and didn't see those unique circumstances applying to that setback variance.
All right. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. I'm just curious about the intended use of the patio. Is it for the residents? Are there going to be chairs and fireplaces and activities? How do they intend to use that
Sure.
space?
I will, when the applicant comes to speak, they will have the floor to answer that in more detail, but.
And we'll wait on that for just a minute.
Yeah, but I could see just, I don't know the exact programming of that portion of the patio.
One more follow-up question. So if the patio was proposed on the goods and services side, first, is there space to even do that? And if they did, would you recommend a variance in that circumstance?
We did recommend approval, Chair, we are recommending approval of those upper floor balconies, that part on the red. And there's a chance that we could have recommended support given the design. We don't have that design and how it is played out. That's not what's in front of us, so we didn't recommend. I couldn't give you a complete black and white answer on that. But we do, like I said, with the other variance requests, looking for elements that help engage with the public street, given that it is a goods and services corridor. I should mention, we really appreciate working with the applicant on this. It was my misreading of, and I think we worked together on setbacks. It was later in the review, just not misreading an element in the zoning code for the setback requirements. So perhaps a few elements more than you're used to seeing in a variance request. And now, but still, with all that said, still saw the unique circumstances for what they proposed along 44th Street.
Okay. Commissioner Baxley?
Just,
Mike?
Thank you. And it's a patio because it's got a paved surface. Just describe for me just what the definition of a patio is.
Sure. Ground level patio, that the requirements of allowing 100 square feet. I'll show you here. Seeing it on that first floor, not being those, and the balconies above that are set back a little more than what is proposed on the first floor. The allowance for that ground level patio is 100 square feet. When you are looking at patios that extend beyond that front yard setback. And I hope in these drawings here, that you're just showing that it is 68 square feet that is proposed to extend beyond that. But given that the patio is 233 square feet, they need to comply with the setback requirements.
Understood. I'm assuming green space requirements are all met here, but if there was a sidewalk of that width that was all along the edge of that building, how would you, even though it ran in front of the patio, would you still
Right.
consider that a patio or walkway? I'm not trying to be
Nope.
cute here.
Nope.
But I'm just,
Chair and Commissioner Baxley, that would get to like the walkway or the sidewalk that's proposed along 44th Street, where it's that requirement for a walkway when it's within the setback is a maximum of 6 feet in width.
Right.
So I would say that one way or the other, the analysis would be that would need to be slimmed down if in that scenario.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jones, did you have another question?
No, I'll wait and hear the applicant's conversation. Thanks.
Commissioner Gordon.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, per the landscaping plan, within the area that we're discussing, it indicates an overhead trellis, steel structure, and outdoor kitchen, or pipe for outdoor kitchen. Is that still part of the plan, as that has not come up in your description, and it varies somewhat from an on-grade patio, as there's, thank you.
Chair and Commissioner Gordon, is
Yeah,
that patio in this area here?
Yeah.
Or in the back? Given that
Oh,
that patio is set back beyond the front yard setback along Vincent, and it's not within a setback, they're able to have the proposal as is.
I guess thank you for the clarification. The note that I'm referencing is within the patio that we're discussing, I believe, but it's on the
Okay.
landscaping plan. So I wasn't sure if that's still part of the design or not.
I'm happy to look into that more if you give me a couple minutes, maybe perhaps let the applicant speak to that, and then if there's anything to clarify further, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Any other questions before we go on to the applicant? All right, not seeing any, I'll open the public hearing, and the applicant can come up and give your presentation.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Pete Keeley with Collage Architects. I also have the owners here, Charles Burdick and Thomas Herzog. So first of all, I want to thank staff for working through a number of kind of some tricky issues and going back and forth on this. You may have seen this project a few years ago. It was a market rate apartment project. After kind of going through maybe some of the headwinds and also with the neighborhood, it has changed to a 14-unit condominium. And as such, it's kind of I'd say more luxury, higher end within Linden Hills. And some of the requirements are for what that is needed to be successful do change. One of the big ones is outdoor spaces. That's what people tend to like. So we've been trying to work and get some of these outdoor patios. I'm going to talk maybe specifically about two items right now. One is the Vincent side, and one is the 10-foot on the north side, the sidewalk, which is one of the conditions on the north side. Happy to talk about the rest of the variances if you want to, but since staff was kind of recommending approval, I'll save that for any questions that you might have. Commissioner Jones, as far as I think it was you that raised the question about what's happening out there. So these are for the residents, the individual residents, they're individual units. So people would that person for that specific unit could use that space. It would be things such as outdoor furniture, so on and so forth. So it is specifically for that one unit. I think when we were looking at this site, we wanted to provide the larger patios. We look at the context of the neighborhood, and a lot of the neighbors all the way up and down the street have large porches. I mean, that's kind of the historic pattern, is to have pretty significant outdoor space that were in porches. We wanted to, kind of replicate that, but really the idea is to have people be able to sit outside, be outside, on the front, on the street, which we think is more vital to those streets, is to have people out there. An interesting aspect of this is if we had a wall of a building at the property line, we could build a 100 square foot patio. So because we're pulling it back and creating more outdoor space and more ability to connect with neighbors, that's where it becomes a variance, not the 100 square feet within the setback. So 100 square feet's not a lot, I think, for the market. And then in addition to that, I do believe that having patios extend beyond the face of the building is also more of a public face rather than being kind of sheltered behind a wall of a building. So getting people just a few feet closer so that you can see up and down the street and not be tucked behind is actually a way to maybe engage the street in a way that we couldn't otherwise. So that's, I think, maybe why we're looking for that as a variance, and the need for doing it is to provide that additional space. On the conditions on 44th, the goods and services corridor, if that were a commercial building, not an issue, right? So because it's a residential building, it has that 6 foot. So we will have, as written or as shown, as a 10-foot sidewalk. It's fairly well detailed. That would then, we would like to keep it at 10 feet all the way out to the public sidewalk. So it's clean, it's kind of identifiable as the front door. And so we would like to see that, in an ideal world, like to see that condition removed because we think it's a more graceful entry to go from a sidewalk to a continuous pattern in front of the street. It has maybe a little bit more of a commercial feel towards it, a little bit more sidewalk patio, and we think it's appropriate of a goods and services corridor to actually have that larger apron rather than going from a 6 foot sidewalk to a 6 foot sidewalk to a larger patio. So that's in essence kind of why we're going down that route for that front entry. And hopefully that explains kind of why we're up here looking for the variance on the patio. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions on those two items, any of the other variances or whatnot.
Thank you. Can you clarify which condition this was? Like which number on the site plan review it was?
Yeah, there's a condition, let's see if I can. Yeah, okay, so as recommended motion, a variance approves the variance to reduce the corner side yard setback along 44th West from 10 feet to 9 feet. And then it goes on to the different versions with the proposed condition, number 1, the proposed walkway shall be reduced to 6 feet in width or less. And so that would essentially be between the public sidewalk and the property line.
Okay. For both of these, do you happen to have images that show them with and without? Like, do you have?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
Can you do your best to describe them with the images? So, because I'm not totally following
Sure.
where
Sure.
the difference between 6 and 10 feet is going to be on here that you're requesting. Maybe Commissioner Baxter can help me with it.
I think that's
All right. Are you able to see this okay? What do I need to do?
I'm not sure what you're trying to.
Oh, I've got something on the screen here.
Rachel, copy. It's always fun.
Right. Well, a new space, right, too.
There you go.
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay. Is there a way to zoom in a little bit?
It's pretty zoomed.
Yeah, we can see it pretty well, I think.
Oh, there we go. All right. If you can see that pretty well. So right now, this is essentially the property line right here. Right? We can build this portion, which is the front door. We are requesting to build this portion, so this all lines up all the way throughout. The variance, or the way it's written, means the sidewalk would have to reduce to that size. That's the condition.
Okay.
So this dimension right here is required to be 6 feet. We would rather see it at 10 so that all of this lines up.
Okay, so
And that's all, yeah.
So the public sidewalk isn't affected either way, but the sidewalk you have would be, you're asking it to be 10 feet wide instead of 6 feet wide?
Correct.
Okay. And then, help us understand the other one?
So
The red area
on
is-
this side, actually, if we built a wall right here,
Mm-hmm.
we're allowed 100 square feet. If we wanted to put a patio right here, and I'll look to Kimberly or Aaron to correct me if I'm wrong, but we can build 100 square feet. Because we're recessing the patio beyond the property line and setback line, or the setback line, sorry, not the property line, then that requirement is that that gets added in total. So it starts to limit the amount of space that we can do within the outdoor space. And when you look up and down Vincent or kind of the traditional neighborhoods, is those patios tend to kind of run the full width. They could be anywhere from 6 to 12 feet deep, but they're quite a bit larger than just the 100 square feet, which is why we think it's actually to provide that kind of living space in a multifamily where that is where their outdoor space is appropriate, an appropriate use of that public street, is that kind of activates the pedestrian realm.
And to the left of the balcony is a stairwell? Is that what that's depicting?
Yeah, this is an access up and down to get in, because there's about a 10-foot grade break across that. Right now on the site, there's a large retaining wall, but there's about 10 feet across here. So the stairway is to kind of a line to get up to that patio.
Got it. All right. Commissioner Gordon, did you have a question to this one? Commissioner Jones, did you?
I was just conferring with my fellow commissioner that this only impacts one unit in the 14-unit building, that
Correct.
patio space? Okay,
It's just the ground floor unit. Mhm.
okay, thanks.
Any other questions from commissioners? All right, thank you for your testimony. Did anyone else come here to testify on this item? All right. Not seeing any, so I'll close the public hearing and ask Aaron to come back up. Can you just repeat what your recommendation is regarding the sidewalk width for the variance that you are recommending? That condition to make it 6 feet instead of 10 feet, what?
Yeah. So we have, as Mr. Keeley noted, for the variance A, the proposed walkway shall be reduced in width from 10 feet as proposed to 6 feet within that setback along 44th Street.
Yeah, can you speak to why you're recommending that?
We didn't see the unique circumstances applying to this walkway, that
Got it.
standard applying to this part, but for all the other elements that are within that setback, we did see unique circumstances for the site that were applicable, and that's why we're recommending approval of those.
Okay, so we don't necessarily have anything against the broader sidewalk, it's just that there wasn't a practical difficulty that applied to that part of it.
Correct.
Got it, okay.
Correct. Chair, Mayor, and Commissioner Gordon and Commissioner Jones, for that patio, and maybe to note to Kimberly, thank you for noticing the trellis and the grill area within that. With a trellis on top of the patio along Vincent, if that is the proposal, I guess we would have to look at an analysis on whether that trellis would also comply with zoning code standards, or if it is those two elements, that patio and then that trellis. I could just see that being something that we would have to analyze in closer detail of complying with a trellis on top of a patio. So I'm just wondering of what to consider that element on the patio, if it is two elements. And I don't know, I know I'm putting you on the spot, Kimberly, but I don't know if something comes to mind.
I'm looking it up right now.
And while you're looking that up, I'm going to reveal some ignorance here, but I don't know what a trellis is. Can you explain what that?
So I can read you the zoning code definition. I just actually paged away from it, though. So we refer to trellises and arbors as one permitted obstruction. You can see it in the bottom right-hand corner of this picture, I think. Is it that wood element sticking out?
And that is, and I do apologize for that oversight. In talking with the applicant, that trellis element is something that they would be okay without having. So we would just be looking at that patio as proposed. So I do apologize about noting that wrinkle and confusing things with my presentation.
And just to confirm, so we do allow pergolas in front or corner side yards not exceeding 20 square feet or 8 feet in height. There's a whole pergola arbor trellis discussion to be had here, but I think it might be okay.
If you did overturn staff recommendation for variance B and allowed that patio to go forward, then they would work within the zoning code and the provisions that Kimberly noted to have a patio that complied with everything except the setback variance as noted.
Mr. Baxley?
Adam, so just as Pete was describing, if there was not an indented patio, they could build the patio, right? So at 100 square feet.
He described it well correct, it is that
It's the
additional.
aggregate square footage is what causes because
Yes.
it's inboard,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. But we'd be allowed to build a patio or a 100 square foot porch on a side yard, potentially.
In the front yard, if it didn't
Front yard,
extend
sorry.
to a certain distance to the street, but.
To the street, yeah, okay.
Yes.
So it's understood. Thank you.
And Commissioner Baxley, just another way to answer that question. So if you have a ground level patio that's more than 100 square feet, if it's not just 100 square feet in the required yard, if it's more than 100 square feet and any portion of it encroaches into the required yard, then it's not a permitted encroachment.
Commissioner Wagner?
Thank you, Chair Meyer. I had a question about the variance A1 for the 6 feet versus 10 feet. Could you speak to the reasoning behind that section of the code? When I think of all the nice buildings around town, you never approach a massive, nice building on a narrow sidewalk, in my experience. So could you speak to the reasoning behind that section of the code?
Chair Meyer, Commissioner Wagner, good question. Point taken, especially you can see some larger structures that would have that walkway match the width of the stairs. This provision's been there for a number of years, and in large part, I think it is to perhaps reduce the amount of impervious surface for a site. For all the reasons, we are recommending denial, but we tried to note the context of this site being really close to the commercial corridor and a number of other neighboring buildings to the east and along Upton that likely have those wider walkways or just an extension of where that door to the building extends to the public sidewalk. So it's just, it is seen as wider than 10 feet. But that was the standard, and we just did not see the unique circumstances applying. That was staff's analysis. It is in your hands now for if you did see unique circumstances for the walkway width.
Adam, one more question. So the patio to the south from that last unit, which is?
Are you referring to?
Yeah. How big is that one?
Quite big.
Yeah. And it's
But-
not a front yard, it's a corner, like, so how do you characterize that one?
Chair Meyer and Commissioner Baxley, we characterize it as being set back beyond the 15-foot front yard setback.
Because of
So
the setback, so we can, all right.
go to town, yeah.
Got it. Interesting.
Right. I guess, so I'll share my thoughts on this and see where other commissioners are at. But first, I want to say it's great to see some condos being proposed. We don't see that very often. It's great to see some new home ownership opportunities coming online. I also think that balconies and patios are things that we should actively encourage, especially after the pandemic, and a lot of these regulations were written beforehand, but I think it's more important than ever to provide space for people to be outside. And I think the communal benefits of the patio are important, and I feel that this patio is close to the goods and service corridor, like it's not on it, but it's visible from it. And I think that that it would help activate that street. And I think it's also unfortunate with the way the regulations are written that you're being punished for recessing the patio. I don't see any public interest in that policy, so I think that was well taken from the applicant. So I guess my thoughts are, I feel the practical difficulties that staff recommended for item A are also applicable to item B regarding the slope and the lack of an alleyway. So I think I would move to grant the variance for item B on that basis. I'm not prepared to go against the staff recommendation on item A. I do think reducing impervious surface is a relevant thing for us to be doing. But open to arguments if other commissioners disagree about that. So other commissioners, do you have any thoughts about it? Commissioner Conley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just thinking about that one too, the A1, the walkway width is, I could see lining it up with the entrance, and I also don't recall walking past a large apartment or condo and not seeing the entrance line up, but I also, the first thing that came to my mind was plant some flowers or some bushes, so I can see where a smaller width walkway could be worked with some perennials. I don't know. I was trying to think of a practical difficulty and couldn't, other than just keeping it the length or the width of the walkway. So I guess I would agree with you there on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's challenging to find a practical difficulty for that. And although I do accept the argument, those things are scaled to buildings, and there's an appropriateness to that. However, I think, it doesn't have to step, it could slant. We've got some slanted, I think there's a creative way to get both, so I just can't find the practical difficulty. So would it be nice? Sure. But I think I'm going to side with staff on the first one and support the chair's description of and not go along with denial for the patio on Vincent. So,
What's your stance on the?
I'm accepting the proposal and not agreeing with staff's recommendation to deny that.
Aaron, this might be another question for you. I apologize. Is there any, and I'm assuming that if the answer to this question is yes, you would have included it in here, but is there any opportunity for alternative compliance with that variance request? If the purpose behind it is impervious surface, is there a way to?
Chair Meyer and Commissioner Campbell, there is not. This is outside of that site plan review standard. The project does just note in support of the project that it is, it is in compliance with the impervious surface requirements of having a maximum of 75%, The proposal is 74.1% impervious. So unfortunately, there's not a way to do alternative compliance for that width, walkway width, but I just wanted to note, since I'm back up here, that it is compliant, the project overall is in compliance with its impervious surface code.
All right, Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you, Chair Meyer. I agree with basically everything that's been said by commissioners in discussion so far. I think this is a great project for the neighborhood. I think it fits the neighborhood. I think that the practical difficulty, like others have said, is hard to find. I would hope that as a city, we continue to look at our zoning code on a consistent basis, because a 6-foot sidewalk approaching a building like this doesn't feel right to me. It's just someone who's been in cities, just broadly speaking. So as we continue to kind of think about our zoning code, we should look at little small cleanups when possible, in my opinion. But I agree with the discussion from Chair Meyer and Bexley, and I'm happy to move the direction that the discussion is going.
So you're making a motion?
I guess that was a comment, but I'm happy to make a motion if needed. I don't know, is there more discussion?
And we'll take more discussion if there is any. Oh, Commissioner Jones, do you have yours up? Okay. All right, Commissioner Campbell.
I was just going to make a motion if
Go ahead.
Commissioner Wagner didn't to, this is always really fun. A motion to adopt staff recommendation with the exception of section B, with the practical difficulty being similar to previous variance requests related to the goods and services corridor that have been applied to other throughout the course of the application. Does that suffice?
Yes, I think we can work with that. I had, and per Commissioner Meyer's comments, essentially a copy and paste of the findings that were made for item A.
Yep. Great. Yep.
If you'll take a friendly addition to it, so
Sure.
just to put on record what those are, it's the slope and the lack of a public alley.
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Does staff need any of that repeated? Okay. Any further discussion? All right, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Baxley,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Conley,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Jones. Aye. Wagner,
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
We have 7 yeas and 0 nays.
That motion is adopted. Good luck with your project. All right, so you've had a couple weeks to reflect on nominations for officers. Do people feel ready to make nominations? The nominations would happen now, and then the election would happen the next cycle, or we can just wait like we did last time until.
Keep punting it.
Yep. Your mic is off.
Everybody who's currently in a leadership position and can want to continue?
No.
Is that?
No.
Commissioner Campbell does not.
And you're the vice chair, vice president?
Committee of the whole on Thursdays.
Yes, so to confirm, we have President Meyer, Vice President Campbell, and Secretary Baxley. The secretary is primarily responsible for signing all of our documents, but we make that easy by getting an electronic copy of your signature and only using it as needed for official city documents. The president chairs the regular meetings, the vice president chairs committee of the whole. The secretary also steps in as needed to fill those if we have people who are absent.
Commissioner Baxley, would you take a promotion to vice president?
I think I've already held that position, but vice president.
You are allowed to hold a position more than once. If,
Well, there's some other, we got a lot of great qualified.
and the only people who are not allowed to take a position are those who are elected officials.
All right, so
So
Commissioner Conley
Commissioner
is
Conley
ineligible.
and Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Chowdhury,
And Shefty.
and Commissioner Shefty are not eligible. And none of them are here, so that makes it easy.
Well,
Well, Conley's here, yes. The other three are not here.
Mr. Chair, may I propose the slate?
Yes.
I would propose to have President Chris Meyer remain as our president of the Planning Commission with Vice Chair Baxley and Secretary Wagner.
Secretary Wagner, would you accept being secretary?
Sure.
All right.
I
So
haven't signed anything yet.
we'll take that as a nomination. Are there any other nominations? All right, so I think we wait a cycle now, right?
Yes, is Commissioner Baxley accepting his nomination?
Oh,
I am, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I also accept. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Conley. So we'll have those nominations ready for the next meeting.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. All right. Our next regular meeting is Monday, March 24th, and we do maybe have committee of the whole. It's going to depend on who's able to show up. So Commissioner Campbell won't be able to be there. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to be there. So you have 4 who are going to be there? Okay. Okay. I might or might not be. So we'll see sooner to it. But this will be a chance for you to chair the meeting.
Is it for sure? Can you hold for Thursday?
Yes, so we did have items, we were holding off on publishing the agenda until we made sure we had a quorum.
Yeah.
And to Commissioner Wagner's earlier point quite recently about constantly making minor updates to the zoning code, that's what's being brought to you at Committee of the Whole Thursday. We have our housekeeping amendment, which is things that we have been determined to be housekeeping items, so not major policy changes, but housekeeping items to clean up the land use rezoning study, and then an accompanying map amendment to go along with that. So that's what will be in front of you at Committee of the Whole on Thursday, and actually the agenda was, it's in the process of being published, so you'll be able to see that. So yes, I have 4 confirmed. If you are not able to make it, please let us know. Committee of the Whole quorum is only 3, but obviously for a text amendment, the more voices in the room, the better.
Great. Any other updates from commissioners or staff?
Yes. I think I told you last time we had received an appeal of the denial of the JP Morgan sign. That was considered by the Biz Committee of the City Council last week and was forwarded without recommendation. So that will go to the full City Council on Friday, the 14th. And then we did receive an appeal last week of the denial of the FAR variance and site plan review on the Baylor Boutique project at 1302 Douglas Avenue and 1716 Fremont Avenue South. That will be going to the Biz Committee at a special meeting time next week. It's actually being held on Thursday, the 20th at 10:30 a.m.
And which direction was that? That's from the applicant requesting the higher FAR?
Yes, so the applicant had requested the FAR variance, staff had recommended denial, the Planning Commission denied, and the applicant is now appealing that denial to
Okay,
allow
so-
the project to proceed as proposed.
Okay, so the appeal is only going in one direction. Did the opponents also appeal?
The opponents did not appeal.
Okay. Okay. Any other updates from anyone else? Seeing no further business, we are adjourned.